beautiful souls. Today I want to talk about the ego and what we know about the ego, right? The ego is the bad guy. It's got a bad rep. And if you don't keep your ego in check, you might find yourself running a rampage of self-centered, self-entitled, selfish, egotistical, narcissistic traits, ways of living and making your own little rampage of hell, right? Maybe that's how we've all come to understand the ego, that bad guy, that bad aspect. Yet the ego was bestowed upon us from the creator, source, spirit, God, whatever you coin, the universe. Why would an all-loving source do that if it's so bad? Well, we obviously know that the ego does serve us in some sense, right? It is a protective mechanism. And ultimately, we want to mature it. But when I say mature it, that does not mean to suppress it. And I think that's what a lot of people think when they think about the ego. If I'm not in a death or life situation, then hush the ego. But do you realize that the ego goes much further than just the physical reality? The ego sparks its wild head when it comes to not only physical existence, but to your emotional, to your mental, and to your spiritual welfare as well. It plays a huge key indicator to all of it, especially within this duality. If we want to be able to embrace and love ourselves wholly, we need to embrace that which we think is ugly. And that includes the ego. My biggest avocation is that of self-love. Can you fully self-love yourself if you're not giving yourself the due attention needed? Especially when an egotistical moment, when the ego rails its ugly head, if you're suppressing. Is that very loving? Or is it that you don't love that? So you hush it. Hence, allowing those aspects to become a part of the resistance within the evolution of who you are. The ego often comes with a warning, comes with a message, and is asked to be looked at. For you to go internal and to see what it is proposing. Can you give gratitude and love to the ego who is trying to protect you for a reason? In the surrendering to that of the ego, we open ourselves to a gateway to allow the ego to get a grasp of all the different potentials, the higher perspective, and awareness. I'd like to give this analogy. It's very similar to that of the child. When we want to shelter and protect the child, we hush it. We keep it confined away from a different reality. So when the child comes out to the reality and is struck with the duality, the contrast, there's a hurt essence to it. And if somebody doesn't explain to this child what is happening, it's going to be left in the dark, confused. Very similar to that of the ego. If we hush it and don't give it the due respect and enlightenment that it is requiring, it will continue to be in the dark and can be continued to see as the bad guy. If we can embrace the ego and ask what messages it brings and what survival mechanism is it trying to display for us, integrating it into the development of who we are, to reassure it that you are safe. And maybe sometimes, guys, maybe you're not safe. Maybe you're within a relationship that your ego is welling its head in instinct of that of intuition. But you wouldn't know that because you keep on suppressing it. In order to come into a moment of self-love, you have to embrace the duality of who you are. That includes the good, the bad, the ugly, and the pretty. That includes the ego. And in a moment of doing it, you allow yourself to become very intimate with yourself. And to become very intimate with yourself is to know thyself. And if you don't know yourself, well, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else, especially if you've got a big heart and you're trying to suppress the ego, will use the ego against you. When really, in fact, it's there to serve you. It's there to protect you. By becoming intimate, by asking the appropriate questions, by staying with that negative or that irrational thought, you allocate yourself the opportunity to see beyond and to integrate that so the ego itself can mature as well, to be enlightened as well, to be encompassing the whole demeanor of who you are as one. And once you know thyself, are you better allocated to give yourself the self-love, to show up in this world with the esteem, the confidence, within the light that you are, to portray and to bestow love to others and travel your path in the highest evolving way, not only for yourself, but those around. But you can't get there if you can't embrace all that you are. So the avocation I give today is, can you love and accept your ego? Thank you for showing up. Thank you for trying to protect me. Time to get intimate with myself, to understand what these messages are bringing, and to gain not only a higher awareness of myself, but to give the ego a higher awareness of different possibilities. And in addition to that, you arm yourself from the dualities of the outside world by integrating both the contrasts of the good, the bad, the light, the dark within self. To have a better understanding of those who may have not given themselves the same opportunity. And in the act, you can disarm them of the manipulation tools, gaslighting, triangular, different tactics that they have tried to use in their own selfish, entitled ways, because they haven't matured in encompassing themselves. And you can't change anybody, but you can start with yourself. And is there any other better way to be armed to see the dualities of the contrast that is beyond ourselves, within ourselves? I hope that makes sense. Stop suppressing your ego, guys. It comes with a message. It comes as not as a curse, but rather a gift, if you can learn to implement it correctly. I'm not saying all by means go out and create hell and in embracing your ego, but I'm asking you to get intimate with it. Intimate with the ego, intimate with yourself, to really get to know who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in, and to learn to accept the beauty of everything, all the perfections, imperfections, ugly, light, dark of who you are, so that you can integrate it into your daily life. I have so much love. Until next time, namaste.